Montgomery, and for this episode of Real Geeks, based on our pre-recording conversation, I already know it's going to go off the rails real quick. And this is going to be amazing. We have gathered to discuss 1996's The Craft. I am, of course, joined by Vida down in the bottom corner, and I've pretty much assembled my own coven here. My worlds are colliding as we have the two of the Twitter sisters of Out of the Adipose, my other side project. Down below me here, we have the star of Red Springs and Haphead, and probably one of the more prominent fitness trainers in New York, Elysia Cronheim.
That's true. Look up the best trainers in New York, and you will find me listed in an article.
Sweet, and we are blessed by your presence.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll survive this. Woo.
And over to my right here, we have a film student and one of the few people I know who can explain why the Oscars have both a sound mixing and sound editing category.
You're too kind.
Natasha Czajkowski. And I mean, seriously,
right.
See, I learned. Essentially, the plot is pretty much it stars Robin Tooney as Sarah Bailey, who has just moved from San Francisco to LA and is just starting at a Catholic school, and it's basically every 90s teen film ever is how this movie starts.
Yeah, that's definitely
But
what I
with a
got.
worse script.
Isn't that just kind of teen movies in general, though?
Yeah, that's all with new kids. Let's pick on them. Yeah. Story of my life.
Look, this movie was released the year that I was released, so I mean, from the womb, not jail, just so we can point that out.
Meanwhile, I, on the other hand, can remember seeing the movie in theater while I was in high school.
Sorry, I was thinking about that when I saw when it was released, so I was like, I have a line to say.
I was 6. That's
Baby.
fact. That movie should be buried like 7 feet under, because 6 feet isn't enough.
How about like Ocean Deep? Or is that just too
To
cruel
be
to the
fair, it's like the whole movie is what you shouldn't do.
Pretty much, yeah.
Isn't that just every teen movie again?
Yes.
Not wrong, but like at the same time, this movie honestly does fascinate me because this came out in roughly the same time period as things like The Faculty and Disturbing Behavior, which are pretty much this movie in every way. Yet this is the one that has stuck around for close to 25 years.
How is it stuck around? Does it have a cult following?
That's the thing!
Because witches
there's
like me
something
look at it as a what not to do.
But like it's quite
That was Supernatural. Supernatural to combat.
it's quite literally, since this came out, we had Charmed, which ripped this movie off in every way imaginable.
Charmed I can sit through with not much problem.
If you've watched the cartoon X-Men Evolution, Season 2, Episode 9 has a scene where the animators pulled directly from The Craft. I can literally go on YouTube right now, and there are ASMR videos based on The Craft.
You're such a nerd.
Isn't that why we're all friends?
Yes. I'm also a huge wrestling fan, and even just this past week on Impact Wrestling, there's a segment that dropped a reference to The Craft.
That is very specific.
Explain. What is the reference?
There was a segment between Rosemary the Demon Assassin and a guy by the name of Johnny Bravo, where at one point Bravo says the line, "I'm not playing your light as a feather, stiff as a board game."
See, when they did that, I remember doing that in elementary school, which, funny enough, was at a Catholic school at that point. So some of it I was going like, that sounds familiar, but then like 90% of it I was like, thank God I didn't experience this in school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember doing light as a feather, stiff as a board, but we had 3 or 4 people on each side, and then, we did the 2 fingers and whatnot, but, none of us ended up floating like that.
Before the craft?
Oh, no, it did. It did.
Okay, yeah, because I was like...
Sleepaway camp, it's been done at girls' sleepovers, it's been around.
It's fun. I miss random shit like that.
One of the things I loved was how, just amongst other things, as soon as Sarah gets to school for the first time, her dad is like, we can wait until you get to get a uniform, and the movie immediately shows how half the student body is not in uniform at all.
Well, the thing is too, like, if that happened to me, if I showed up to school without a uniform, even if I was a brand new kid, I would not have been allowed at the school. I would have been sent home, and it's like, wait till you get a uniform, and then, get a slip, But, uniform's so expensive too. But, the thing is, though, too, Sarah, honest to God, could have just worn something that didn't stick out so much that made people go, who the hell are you? Like, she could have at least
black skirt and a white top should have been fine.
Not even that, or black pants. I wasn't a kid in the 90s. I was
Oddly enough, with a girl with a uniform including slacks, I think they were all wearing just the short skirts, which, again, Catholic school, I don't understand why their skirt lengths are so short.
Okay, as someone who went to a private Christian school until I was 14, we had a skirt length rule.
Like 2 fingers above the knee.
Yeah. And, like, we would we would only, like, roll them. Like, the teachers would check them, but we would roll them. But I'm pretty sure that this movie wanted a bit of sex appeal.
But it's not just this one.
See, I felt very turned on.
At
the Catholic school, there's a short skirt.
Yeah. And
so
sex appeal in that respect is, again, every 90s teen movie ever.
Yeah, thankfully we didn't have kilts. Well, uniform skirts. Kilts are actually nice. Uniform skirts, not so much. They got rid of those way before I went to the school that I went to. But yeah. See, the thing is, too, two of the things that got me at the beginning of the movie, to kind of bring it around circle, was that, I thought it was really cool how they had brought it in, zooming in on them trying to do the spells and whatnot. It was all very kind of mystical and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, boom! With the music.
Cue the Our Lady piece.
Okay, here we go. And then, she, like, you don't have to go to school. You can wait until you get a uniform. So I'll be fine. I'll take you out. I'll walk. And then instantly it goes into, like, the classic teenage, like, you got the pop music beginning as she walks to the school and looking around at everything and whatnot. And it's like, oh, yeah, this is every teenage movie.
Well, that
I don't watch them.
To the first interactions between every character. Like, my favorite first interaction was between her and the guy that she fell in love with, or fell in love with her. What's his name? I don't know.
Classic Doc. We'll just,
good old Skeet Ulrich.
Yeah.
The conversation they had, I blocked it. It was so bad, I actually laughed out loud. The guy, they were just, like, talking. She's like, I'm new here. And then she's like, sorry, I have my defenses up. And it's like, okay, that's supposed to be subtext, but cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have my defenses up. Oh, you see those girls over there? They're witches. Oh, that's crazy. Do you want to come watch me at football practice? It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Like, they did not even try to, like, flower it up. They didn't. No subtlety. It was just like, okay, let's just put the subtext instead of the script.
Hey, girl, stay away from them. Let's bang.
Yeah, and, like, the interesting thing was, speaking of both subtlety and the soundtrack, what I noticed when I was watching it last night, the music on certain scenes, especially in the first act, the lyrics fit the scene way too well.
See, I wasn't even paying attention to the lyrics. It was just like, yeah, this is such a stereotype.
I wasn't specifically paying attention to the music either. It was like, it's one of those little things that kind of just happened to jump out at me, and it was like,
okay,
wow.
Like, I thought that was the whole point of a soundtrack, was to have it match the scenes where it was playing.
Usually, but sometimes I have questions.
That's
not necessarily with the lyric. I think it's like, okay, here's what's happening, but also let me narrate it back here.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I had an ex-girlfriend who had sort of connections in the music industry, and one of the things she told me about was how sometimes with film soundtracks, it's literally a record label just taking a bunch of artists that they want to promote and just sticking them on the soundtrack with a particular song that doesn't even necessarily have to do with the movie.
That's just business, baby.
Exactly.
Can I just say though, right from when I saw Nancy, I did not like her.
Well,
and it's not
supposed to.
No, you really weren't.
No, but I mean, like, the thing is too, like, you instantly see her and she's just like, but it's like, that's like the creepy kid from school that you just stay away from, which I mean, that's what she was anyway. But yeah, I for a while I was sitting there for like half an hour going, is it just the eyeliner, or is the actress actually walking around like with her eyes like wide open? Like,
speaking as someone who has worked in film, I honestly don't blame the actors.
Yeah.
The director told them to be a certain way, which made me question if this movie was supposed to be bad or if it was like trying to be good. Like, were they trying to go to like such a campy extreme, or were they actually trying to make a good movie? Because if they were actually trying to make a good movie, like, you fucking failed real hard.
Yeah.
But if you were trying to go so campy that people love it, it kind of worked because, like I mentioned before we started recording, I was like, what's happening? Like, I'm kind of interested now.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention was just going back to that lack of subtlety one more time. Natasha, you were talking about that opening shot of them chanting, and like you see the camera just zoom in straight on Nancy the entire time. Mm-hmm. Like, even the camera is going, you should pay attention to her.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's nothing subtle about that whatsoever. You know that she's going to be the trouble one. Yeah,
and also, and even just with this first part, I have concerns about Sarah's parents. I don't know if anybody caught this. When they first come into their new house at the start of the film, if you listen to the dialogue, I'm pretty sure that this is the first time any of those characters have actually seen the house.
Yeah, I was just like, how did, I can realize, you had noticed before it rained or whatever, but I mean, like, their stuff is in there and whatnot. Doors are open, windows were open, but, you think you would at least notice some, like, cracks or something in the ceiling. But yeah, it's just, oh, look at it, can you believe this? And it's like, what, there wasn't any damage before? Is this like, did somebody come and knock a hole in the ceiling or something before you came? And plus, I mean, there was a second floor.
Yeah.
So it's leaking through the roof to the top floor and then to the main floor. I think, I would not be moving in. It's like, well, time to find a hotel.
There's a lot to unpack about the house.
And not just the furniture.
They might have bought it online. They might have talked to their real estate agent. But
in
like
96?
That's just it. I mean, there are, like, you're supposed to have the house checked and tested and all of that before you actually sign the dotted line.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
So what we're saying is this movie isn't realistic.
No.
Is any movie really realistic to a point?
No, this one's just bad. It's just bad stereotypes of everything. They've got the stereotypical jock, the bad ones. They've got the stereotypical witches. Of course, you have to have one of them has to be goth, which would be the Nancy one. Just it's bad. It's all the stereotypes, the new girl trying to fit in and trying to find friends that will get along and like her.
One thing that kind of threw me with the football player, I can't even remember what his name was, Cody or whatever, I don't know.
Chris,
right, okay. But
Chris Hooker.
But the thing is, like, with Chris, he's like, I play football. You should come watch me sometime. And it's like, okay, so, like, was he the star football player or something? It's like, nah, he's just a football player. Not even, like, quarterback or, he's not the star. No, he's just a football player.
Because apparently I'm a football player is code for please take your panties off and throw them at me.
But I mean, and then that was another thing too. It's like, okay, well, everybody know that, you know, he's a slut. So, you know, why does everybody suddenly believe, you know, oh, I slept with the new girl and she's shit, and everybody's like, oh my god, can you believe it? And you know, but he said that about every other girl in the school almost.
Because he's the stereotypical star football player.
How old were you when the movie came out?
16.
Okay, so
You're old.
You would have been in high school.
Yeah.
I was a few years out of high school. At this point in time, 96, I was either pregnant or had a new baby when the movie came out. But, yeah, guys in high school in the 90s were like that. In part because TV told them that's what they were supposed to be like.
Yeah. Now, needless to say, I was not, but I saw things.
Yeah.
Society has only recently started changing, where women can also do cool things, and men are allowed to have emotions.
Yeah, and even still, it's
still working on that one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
With Chris, it's like, depending on the scene, he's every stereotypical horror character you could think of.
So we're not really surprised he died.
But I'm actually surprised he lasted as long as he did.
Frankly, yeah. But it's like, early on, he's the standard jock. There are points where you'd swear he's the standard dumb blonde character.
Well, don't those go hand in hand like their counterparts?
Yeah.
So he just embodied both the second the love spell happened, because he was all of a sudden the female in it because he was more emotionally available, and that is a feminine quality as society tells us. So he was both. That was very astute, Michael.
Thank you.
Also, that snake guy at the beginning.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Thank you. Yeah, that's basically it.
And then he came back in later.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be like a symbolic thing, like her past haunting her, or like a reminder to show her like who she was or like what she came from. But like, who is he? It's never explained. Like, you can't just throw a random.
Because I mean, it's like
snake guy.
He's like, oh, I had a dream about you. You're gonna die. Blah 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 blah. And then he gets hit by a car. Oh, we did that. Moving on. And it's like, I think you could have done it without him.
Yeah, in the movie itself, that character makes no sense. He's also
cut down the budget by not including him.
he's also where I go, thank God for headcanon, because I have decided that guy is an early effort from Sarah's mother to warn her about Nancy.
Oh, yeah.
Because as they're driving up to the house, there's also a flash of a boa constrictor for no reason.
Yeah.
And then later on, you hear Nancy at the invocation of the spirit ceremony talking about how the snake is a powerful, majestic creature.
It's what she had in the jar.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
I'm sitting here.
The only way they could do it.
I'm sitting here just connecting dots.
Yeah.
That said, that is not something the general viewer should have to do.
I mean,
this is why I went to university.
They assume the viewers are morons, like from the get-go.
Well, I mean, it's like even today, people are expecting all the answers to be handed to them on a silver platter.
You know, not in
the movie. No,
absolutely not. I think directors and producers are realizing that the viewers are smart. Like, you don't need to be so obvious, and like that's one of the big things I was taught when I was getting my degree, is that your audience is smart.
Yeah.
You know that they're smart. They're not just morons. You're not above them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you convey a certain sentence with a certain sentiment, they're also going to get the sentiment.
Yeah.
But this movie, from the very beginning, assumed the viewers were absolute idiots and proceeded to spell everything out multiple times.
Oh God, yeah.
And I think as much as this movie gets a fair bit wrong, and yeah, when it gets stuff wrong, it goes all out. the witchcraft you see in the movie, it gets that. Vida, help me out here, because I'm gonna say, really, like, right-ish.
Magic.
What?
Say
is
that
the
again.
Hollywood version of magic. It is bad Hollywood version of magic.
Hollywood version of magic. Gotcha.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out. I can't think of a better way to put this than this movie is to Witchcraft as CSI is to forensic science.
Pretty much. Like, straight up and down. Manon, and I did verify this afternoon. Manon is a false deity.
Yeah.
Because the pagan person that they had on set to advise them said, this might end up being a cult following movie, and you don't want to influence people with the name of a real god.
Oh.
So right at the outset, Manon is a false deity.
Okay.
The calling of the watchtowers, yes, that does happen. Wicca doesn't so much bring offerings in the form of live creatures, because no.
Yeah.
Wicca doesn't believe in hurting human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And like the whole, oh my god, are you guys Satanists? Yes, that actually has been discussed and asked numerous times of many witches. No, we're not Christian, and Satan is the flip of Christianity. But anyway, the candles, the books, like every young Wiccan / witch does the whole fluffy bunny route.
Yeah.
It's a rite of passage. If you're going to start looking into Wicca and witchcraft and magic, you have to go fluffy bunny, because then you have to figure out what resonates with you, what doesn't, what feels like bull crap, throw that out the door. So in all that sense, yes, they do go over the top. The whole idea of personal gain is brought into it, and how personal gain shouldn't be a reason to do magic. So all the spells go wrong because they're using it for personal gain.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's well, I think the proper term, the scientific term for all of it is hokey.
That works.
Yeah. So the thing is with
sounds like science.
Very scientific, very complicated terms. You gotta stop using that. I'm not gonna be able to keep up. But that was a wonderful description, I gotta say.
Yeah, thanks. That's cool that you are involved in Wicca.
Mm-hmm.
I am not Wiccan.
You've done your research then.
I am a witch.
Oh.
You're a witch.
I am a witch. I am not Wiccan.
Oh, there's a reason that So Help Me, she was going to be on this video.
Wait,
I
want to hear.
Yeah.
I'm a solitary practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
So I am an intuitive medium. I read cards. I have done spells. I've made candles. I've used herbs. I've made dream pillows. I also am an energy worker. Another word for that, or another phrase, is light worker, which again is just too fluffy bunny for my liking. But I am an energy worker. And have I called the quarters? Yes. Have I used an athame? Yes. Have I used blood magic? Yes. Have I drunk somebody else's blood? Ew, God, no, that's gross.
Especially, even more so today.
Oh God, yeah, no. Like I said, I mean, everyone's starting into it. You got all of your Scott Cunningham books and all your books produced or printed by Llewellyn. If it's got the little crescent moon on it, that's what the Wiccans all go for, because that's what they're told to. Everyone says, oh, you have to read this, you have to read that. Scott Cunningham, Doreen Virtue, those are probably, Pamela Butler. Oh, crap. Who's the other one? Raven something. Raven, I can't even think anymore. It's been like 15, 20 years since I've thought about those books.
This is the part where I run off camera because I might actually know.
It's not Raven's mom.
No, that's the actress. She wrote Teen Witch. Raven. Oh, crap. I used to have a copy of her book too. Well, one of them.
I would look it up, but my laptop is dead.
What is you got in your hand?
You trying for Silva Ravenwolf?
That's the one. Teen Witch.
First one I grabbed.
Amazing.
Nice.
It's actually a really good book for any young witchling. So, like anyone that's 13 years old, 13 to 15, Teen Witch is a good book for them to have.
Okay.
And Scott Cunningham is probably like the go-to author. He passed away a number of years ago, but his work is still referenced a lot for neophytes and those that have been in the craft for a long time. He's got books on spells, on energy magic, on herbs and herbology and all that stuff, on phases of the moon. And basically, if there's a topic out there for witches and witchcraft, Scott Cunningham wrote it. But I highly doubt they referenced any of his books for this movie. They probably had no. Pardon?
Seems so real.
Oh, yeah.
No, but like I was just gonna say, if you're gonna go into witchcraft, for crying out loud, do your research, because if you go in expecting to be able to walk on water, oh, you're gonna be disappointed.
I know how to swim. I'm fine.
When she was walking on the water, I said out loud from my face, "That's some Jesus level shit there." What the hell?
Yeah, that's not something that you do when you've only been working magic for about 6 months. No.
Was it even 6 months? Maybe like
still not getting that one down either.
No.
My question is, that didn't freak me out so much as like she's kneeling next to the sharks, going, "It's a gift," and it's like, what specifically? It's what
the elements shot it out for her. There was so much power, and they said, "We hear you.
Here's some dead sharks."
So they gave her an early look at Sharknado.
The element that she called was fire, so I don't know why the water was giving her gifts.
I agree. I was very confused by that.
Yeah.
Like, that gift wasn't for her.
Let alone dead gifts.
Yeah. Unless that's sort of like an omen, like, watch your ass.
And it was like, okay, number one, there's no way that Nancy is not loud enough that entire crowd of people don't hear her.
Yeah.
And no one questions this. But number two, as I understand it, there was a lot of weird shit that happened when they were filming that ceremony. That for all I know, those sharks, that whole thing, that just happened to happen, and they were like, let's get some cameras over there.
Okay.
My respect to the actress, just for the simple fact that during that final conflict, none of them animals were CG. Like, they were actually dropping rats on her. All those snakes were real.
They were like, according to the trivia, they had over 300 snakes, varying types. And
how much would they have to pay you to do that? Because it would be a lot of money for me.
You wouldn't.
Oh no, I would have just walked on set, taken one look and be like, oh hell no. I don't care about breach of contract. No.
Let's just say the last 20 minutes, I spent a lot of time looking at the ceiling as opposed to the TV screen. Oh look, another snake. Okay, we're just gonna look away now.
Oh my god.
You look scarred.
I think that Vida exists for that reason. Can you imagine if movies were still made that way? That's crazy. I'm okay with money. I am the opposite of Indiana Jones in that way only.
Yeah.
It was the bugs that got me.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, one other thing, because as Mike alluded to earlier, I'm a sound person. I have an interest in sound. Half the time, the dialogue sounded like it was dubbed over.
Yeah, actually, I did pick up on that a few times.
The mix was kind of off. It didn't sound it sounded more in a controlled studio environment in some places. Like when, if they're in the school or whatnot, talking. I don't know, it sounded, I don't know if I'm just not used to watching enough older productions like that aren't so much on a higher scale or what, but yeah, it just definitely sounded a little off. I also had a problem with the Foley for when it was raining on her taxi window at the very beginning, because it just sounded like somebody was just throwing some water, like with a squirt bottle or something, and then you go out to where the car is actually driving up the road and it actually sounds like rain, and then it cuts back to the window and
now that you mentioned, there were a couple moments where I'm looking at the screen and I'm going, did her lips move there? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was another thing too. It's like they'd say something, but it's like, I can't tell if they actually said it, or it's just half the time it just sounded really dubbed in to me. But again, that part of me is like, I'm not sure if, I'm just not used to listening to older things where it was still done on tapes or what. Because obviously I know, in post-production you can get somebody to come in and redo their lines or do, the in a fight scene or whatever. I know, I know that's a thing. I've known that since I was 6 years old. But while I was sitting there for the movie, for majority of the movie, it sounded like a good chunk of it had been redone.
Yeah.
So
you would probably know more about that.
Yeah, I've had to redo some lines, and the in fights is always in post.
Oh yeah,
they always need to go record them. But if it was a low-budget movie, or if they had the space for a limited amount of time and needed to reshoot the scene, but weren't able to, it looks low-budget, high-budget. It's like American Pie low-budget. I don't totally know what it is. So I think it's possible that they were under constraints, and they said, "We'll fix it in post. We'll just fix it in post."
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how many times I fucking heard, "We'll fix it in post," and then it doesn't always sound exactly the same. It depends on who mixed it, obviously, but
I'm not saying I could do better or anything.
Yeah.
I only just decided within the past year that I want to work in sound production for film and TV, but that was something that just kept jumping out at me during the movie. But there was something else
because
too.
You had all those classes telling you about it, and it's all really fresh in your brain, and you're like,
basically,
nobody at school wants to do sound, so we got to do a film. Let's do it. Students come up to you, "Hey, do you want to do sound?" Yes. But, that was another thing. Do it in post. Anytime a student says on a production at school, the past 2 years, you just see the teacher crying in the corner. "We'll fix it in post." No, fix it now. Because it's like, don't regret it. And then sometimes, we'll fix it in post, and then they do regret it. But sometimes it's the only thing that you can do too. So, but no, you have way more experience than I do. I'm still learning, but
I'm also on the other side. I'm just telling you.
Oh yeah. No, but I'm loving this.
And I think also another thing with effects in general. This is a period in film where Jurassic Park has just happened. We've just figured out what CG can really do.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the things with the snakes and the rats and so forth at the end, they probably just straight up didn't have a choice. Because there's no way that this production could have afforded to do that digitally at that point. Nowadays, hell yes. And that would be in my contract that you're damn right you're doing this in CG.
Who are your props people, though? There are so many props options. You have a couple real snakes to show that there's movement within them, and then the rest are props. 300 snakes? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's expensive.
And especially with going back to our favorite homeless guy for a second. There was a point. There was a point where he's walking across the street towards Sarah, holding up the snake, and I'm sorry, there's no way that thing was not just a string.
Yeah, it just kept getting smaller and smaller every time you saw him. 2 times? But
that's what she said.
Well, you saw it really clear when he came to the house.
Yeah. Well, this is another thing too. It's Dad, it's still there. I'd be screaming
I don't
or
want that to
something.
be that's what she said.
Hold on,
But you gotta admit though, her dad is damn good with a fire poker.
Yeah, I'd just be there. Shit, I missed. Shit, I missed. Shit, I missed. Just, forget poking it. We're just going, we're going down on it.
I don't know, I did pretty good with the broom when the cat brought one in.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, broom, at least you got, more coverage area,
Yeah.
you know?
Can you, pick it up and bring it outside?
Yeah.
No. He brought in a garden snake and he dropped it in my shoe.
Oh.
I got the shoe.
Still alive.
Whoa.
It was still alive, and it's. I have. Have I mentioned I have a slight issue with snakes?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Out the door. Out the door.
The shoes went out with it too.
Yeah, I would not blame you. With that, let's go to what's probably going to be the single most hilarious part of this entire video.
Oh boy.
Ratings out of 5. Vida, you want to go first?
Mike, I think you should go first.
All right, I'll go first. I don't care.
Who's going first? Y'all.
Mike.
I think for me, this is, I'd say about a 3 out of 5.
That's generous.
Yeah, but you also like bad movies.
I mean, yes, there's that.
You got them there.
This is one of those. I like the movie. I am not going to defend it from a historical perspective. I don't quite understand the impact that this movie has somehow had. But Nancy is goddamn terrifying, and this is more my favorite kind of horror. She's a character that could happen, which scares the hell out of me way more than a lot of what you see in mainstream horror today. And the other main thing for me is just the simple generic 90s rock or not, I love the soundtrack. Vida, you want to go next?
Oh, thoughts on this movie. Well, like I said, the writing could have been a heck of a lot better. Nancy nailed the character that she was playing. She conniving, twisted, sick, power hungry, insecure. She nailed that on top of being a high school student. Nev, I liked her in Party of 5. This one, she didn't bring it. I've seen her do better jobs.
Yeah, this was also her first time on screen, in a film. This is her first film,
Okay,
major Hollywood film anyway.
Good for her.
Okay. The movie itself, they didn't. A lot of it was flat. They didn't take some scenes where they could have gone, so it wasn't as deep as it could have been.
Yeah.
The special effects, the lighting and stuff, like that. But for the most part, this movie, when I talk to a young witch, I'm like, no, seriously, you need to watch this movie because this is what you don't do. You don't work with love magic because this is what can happen. You don't use magic for personal gain because this is what could happen. So it's, whereas some people might go, oh my God, this is my Wicca Bible and I follow it. No, this is exactly what you do not do. I would probably give it a 2. Yeah, I would give it a 2. I mean, I enjoy it. I thought I owned a DVD of it, but apparently I don't. And I did get my my oldest to watch it when she was 13, just because.
Natasha, how about you?
Straight up, I think 2.5, I guess. It was an experience watching it, but it's not necessarily something I would be watching, I'd be rushing to see again. If I never saw it again in my life, I'd be okay. I liked some of the characters. When Sarah said to Bonnie, oh, you're kind of becoming full of yourself and being narcissist, I was kind of sitting there, it's like, okay, but she's also been ashamed of her scars for half of her life.
Yeah.
And now she's finally getting to enjoy not being judged for that. So let her have a bit of fun. The characters were only likable, I think, to a point. And some of the production stuff too. I think the lighting is probably my favorite thing.
Alrighty, and last but most certainly not least, Elysia.
All right, so I think I would rate this. I have a cat hair in my mouth. So, you knew mine would be the best. I would give it a 2 because when I read the description before I even watched it, I was like, okay, this movie's gonna be stupid. And then I watched it and it was like, wow, it's so stupid. But then I was like, okay, they're taking stupid to a next level. Like, yeah, I can sit here and say, oh, the script, so obvious. They use subtext as text, or the characters were so extra, had issues with the things that they brought to the beach and whatever, how they misrepresented literally everything, teen drama, blah, blah, blah. But I think they took every aspect of the movie to such an unrealistic, unbelievable, bullshit degree across the board that eventually I was just like, this movie, that's fun. Once you stop taking it seriously, you can enjoy it. If you're going in looking for flaws, you're going to find literally everything. You just got to
turn your brain off.
Throw away literally everything you've ever learned in your entire life and watch it and be like, ha! Oh. What? The end. So 2. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Good, because I was about to go on a wrap up anyway. So with what might be the greatest setup to wrap I've ever gotten. With that, if you're interested, you can go to adipose.redbubble.com where you can find lovely shirts like this one right here, bookmark it, and maybe buy a shirt when the world figures out what it's doing again. Because I am certainly not comfortable asking people to spend money right now. Vida, did you have stuff online yet, or?
Well,
question answered.
Outoftheroomcloset.ca. There you can find links to my Facebook, my Twitter, my Tumblr, my Square shop. There is product on the Square shop. But like yourself, I'm not pushing it because I'm able to rely on my full-time job. And I know that there are other crafters who are currently relying on their wares. So I'm not pushing my product. And there are too many of us that are now living hand to mouth or check to check or whatever. So I'm not pushing my sales. And
I'm starting a podcast soon.
Well, hey, guess whose turn it is to pitch something?
It's me and one of my best friends, Allie. We're basically going to be whispering back and forth to each other, kind of like a sleepover thing. Not necessarily ASMR, but turn it on and listen to it to try and fall asleep, I suppose. We're going to be talking about Disney World.
So is it like blankets over the head, flashlights on, whispering so that our parents can't hear while we're supposed
to? Basically, yeah.
Interesting.
So, because sometimes I just like to listen to people talk. Kind of reminds me of when, family was over when I was a kid and whatnot, and then just kind of fall asleep on the couch listening to everybody and whatnot. And just because we're all locked away right now, maybe make people feel a little less alone, So that's kind of the whole point. Yeah. So, and I've got a new microphone to test out, so it gives me a chance to kind of play with audio as well. So, exactly. So
there you go.
Got to put the sound student to work. But yeah, that's me.
And Elysia, the floor is yours.
Well, you can find me on Instagram at ElysianForum, ELYSIAN.FORM. I also host a podcast with a fellow trainer and stand-up comedian, Mara Merritt, called Muscle Spasms. It is a fitness comedy podcast. We have a bunch of dope-ass guests on. We talk about the motivation, the human behind the, crazy, intimidating fitness life and some of the science behind fitness and nutrition. You can find that at muscle.spasms on Instagram or Spotify, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. Check it out.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
It's a weird pitch because my headphones cracked out in the middle of it. But here we are.
But we can hear you, and I definitely need some motivation to work out, so. Other than lifting fry boxes at work.
I got you.
So with that, normally this would be the part where I would tell you what our next show will be, but quite simply, we have at least 3 episodes stuck in editing right now, so I have no idea where this is going to place compared to everything else.
Well, I would love to be back sometime, so I mean, this is fun.
Oh, no, I think we could totally swing that, but we have reviews coming up for 1984's Dreamscape. We'll be recording for 2018's Upgrade. And we also have, currently in editing limbo, Elysia's first appearance on the show, where we discussed her film Red Spring.
Yay!
Yay! Oh. Sorry, I'm a disaster.
Just so exciting. That's why we love you, because we're disasters too. Baby. It's okay.
That's all just going to come out. That's all just going to come out at this point whenever it comes out. So instead, I will say, until next time, we are the Weirdos, mister. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons, share this video with your friends, and drop us a line anytime you like.